Ahoy ahoy to all you smooth sailors out there, and welcome aboard the DeckTales Podcast. I'm your host and captain, Sammy Catlin, and this is the show where we set sail into the captivating world of ship life. Most of the time delving into the best and worst experiences of the incredible crew members who called the open sea their workplace, but I'm open to the odd exception as well. Whether we're navigating stunning destinations to weathering unexpected storms, our guests all have stories to tell that will make you laugh, gasp, and maybe even shed an unexpected tear. So if you're a seasoned cruiser eagerly awaiting your next embarkation, or just curious as to what goes on at sea, DeckTales is your boarding pass to a world of nautical narratives. My guest today is Miss Rachel Dudt. She's been on cruise ships on and off for around 15 years, starting as a show team singer, and is now a guest act performer with her own show. Rachel and I used to date, but please don't hold that against her, as she's actually a wonderful person with a lovely disposition and has a huge breadth of amazing stories to share. So let's anchor up and have a little listen. Rachel, how are you?
How are you?
It's good to see you.
Good to see you too. How have you been?
Yeah, it's been okay. It's not been too bad. I haven't seen, well, we've spoken over WhatsApp or Instagram and stuff, but we haven't seen each other and FaceTimed each other in this capacity for what? 14 years, 15, 30, well, 2010.
Yeah, I was going to say it was 10 or 11. I couldn't remember.
Well,
but we met in 2010.
Yeah. You've had your ups and downs since then, and obviously you're still very much involved with the cruise ship industry.
I did take a couple years off, but I've been back on since 2017-ish, and then COVID, obviously. But yeah, my first one was the contract that we met on, and then my next one is actually, I leave on Wednesday. So clearly very much still part of the industry.
Oh, wow. So do you have a number in your head as to how many contracts you've done in 15 years?
Oh, God. As an actual, crew member, 6.
6 cruise contracts.
The shortest I did was I had 2 replacement contracts where I was just coming in for vacation swing. Those were 6 to 8 weeks, but my longest was 8.5 months.
Okay, and what is it that you do?
I originally was a cast member. I was one of the singers on the ship, but now
you're the captain.
I was a vocal captain. Actually, I was sort of a captain.
Well, there's different types of captains. There's a dance captain. There's a vocal captain. There's the captain. Is there any other captains I'm forgetting about?
Party captain? I don't know.
I don't know. But so you're a performer in a nutshell. You sing, you dance, you kick ass.
I do. I don't really dance so much anymore because now that I'm a guest entertainer, I just do my own show. So now my contract lengths are, the shortest one I've done was 3 days, and the longest one I've done is a month. And for anybody that doesn't know what a guest entertainer does, we basically fly on the ship, we do our shows, but essentially we're a guest the rest of the time, and then we fly home. It's kind of like the best job you can have. Not necessarily monetarily, but experience-wise, I feel like it's the best job.
It's like drive-by performing. You're in, you're out, you get away.
So I can't really hide from people on the ship, though, so it's not really a complete drive-by because I'm very recognizable. They'll see the hair from across the pool deck and be like, "Oh, it's Singer Chick!" And so once I've performed at least one show, then they can spot me.
That's a fair comment. Yeah, there is no hiding. You can't. Well, you could just go below deck and stay insulated within your cabin like a hobbit.
If it's a bad itinerary, I sometimes do that.
I don't blame you. And I don't think anybody would. What we want to hear is about your experiences. And in your own words, go back to the beginning, how you fell into it, what it was you wanted to do when you started that journey, I guess.
Okay. So my first ship was in 2010. And that was the fall after I got out of college. So I kind of basically got into it unintentionally because I wanted to pay off my school loans because I have younger brothers and figured it was a good way to save money and pay off my school loans, which I did do. But it was back then, I thought it was a good opportunity to be able to kind of just build your chops a little bit, because at that point there was only 2 singers on each ship. So you were singing all the time and you had to learn, like, as an artist, how to keep that fresh. How do I sing this all different kinds of material that I haven't had any experience singing? And what language am I going to be singing in today? And so it was kind of a good challenge in that way. I had done like a theme park before that, which was kind of the same challenge.
Which theme park was that? Can you say or not?
Oh, no, I don't care. I did Cedar Point and Busch Gardens Europe, which is the European themed Busch Gardens.
How are we being stereotyped over there?
Oh, very well. I'm trying to remember what was in the English section.
James Bond villains.
Well, so basically each section of the park was, so like the German section had the Fest House. And so it was all like German food and German entertainment. In the Italian section, it was all Italian food. And we were singing arias in classic Victorian costumes. Like if they do a good job. It's very Americanized versions, but it's a lot of people don't leave the continental North America though. So
I know this. You know, the first time I ever met an American in the flesh was when my school in secondary school took us to Brittany in France. And there was a group of Americans staying there, like from, school kids like us. And we had arranged to go and meet out on the tennis courts and play some ball games one afternoon. And I come out to meet them all, and they start saying, "Hey, Sam, how are you, buddy? Where you been?" And I said, "Oh, sorry, I'm late. I just got out the shower." And they were like, "What? Really? How was it?" I was like, "It's a fucking shower. What are you talking about? What's going on?" And they were like, "Well, we didn't know you guys had showers normally." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" As you said, people don't get out much. They thought that Britain, modern day England, UK, whatever you want to call us, we're still living in Victorian times. And we heat our water up over a fireplace, and then we fill a big a cast iron bathtub.
Well, it's like the same people that ask me on the ship where I live. Where do you think that I took the helicopter on for today, or I took a lifeboat? Like,
you think now with social media, because it was it was in its infancy when we were on ships, when I was on ships with you. And with all the transparency and story sharing and networking and stuff that goes on now, you'd think that some of these ridiculous questions would have subsided, but no, the hits never die. They keep getting churned out regularly. So, yeah, where do you live on? Do you live on board? Like, no, we used to say the same thing. We get a helicopter on and off the ship every day. And one guest was like, "Oh, wow, okay." And in the CSQs, the customer satisfaction questionnaires, she had written down, "I had a most enjoyable cruise, but unfortunately, I was kept awake most nights due to the sound of the helicopter wings." But yeah, so you tell the guests what? That basically, yeah, you live downstairs, or you like to have a little bit of a play with them first?
Back in the day, I would be like, "Oh yeah, they just, we only stay on board if it's a sea day." And they believed us. But then I always clarified because I felt guilty immediately.
Oh, yeah. But so you've been doing it for on and off 15 years. You were saying about Cedar Point. You were saying about how they do a good job of stereotyping us Brits.
They do.
You went on from the theme parks onto your first contract, and then you started singing your heart out and paying off your student loans and debts.
Yeah. And so I did 3 full contracts with that company and then 1 swing contract. And I enjoyed it, and I made good money. I was able to save a lot of money because, when you're 20 years old, you don't have a lot of bills and a lot of responsibilities. So I was able to pay my school loans off. And then I decided to kind of try to get away from ships. And so I was like, what is the most similar? So I ended up in Vegas because it's like a bunch of cruise ships just parked all next to each other, kind of. And I did shows there for, I was there for 3 years. And then there was a really bad year where we had something like 37 shows close, including the one that I was in. And the entertainment scene just kind of fizzled up and died. So I decided to move back to the East Coast. So I moved to New York. And so I was doing the audition thing, going in for the Broadway shows. And in the meantime, I was like, oh, blah, 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 cruise line's having an audition. I'll just pop over. And every single cruise line I auditioned for, I booked like that. And I was like, is this a sign from the universe that I should just go make some more money? Because living in New York, if you don't have a gig, is really expensive. That's kind of how they hooked me back in. And that's when I started working for Celebrity, and they were fantastic. It was a totally different experience. Also approaching it at a different age, like starting it at, straight out of college and then doing it like 7 years later, you can like look at it differently. And it's not so much like the new shiny experience. It's more like, no, I'm a seasoned professional. I know what to do now.
Yeah.
And I did 3.5 again. It's 3 and then a swing.
Just so I understand, a swing contract is not a contract where you sing exclusively swing music.
No.
A swing, I know that, but for the benefit of others.
A swing contract would typically be if someone either has an emergency, an injury. Both of the one time I went on for Carnival was someone had decided that they wanted to do the same ship again, but you're required to take a vacation. Yes. So I came in and covered for the month while they were on vacation. Okay. But on Celebrity, I actually came in because someone had broken their foot and they were like, oh, can you come out for 8 weeks while she recovers? And so it's not a full contract, but you're still performing the shows as their entirety. Just you only do it for a shorter period of time.
Has anyone ever swung for you? If that's the right way of phrasing it.
Has anyone ever swung for you? No one's ever swung for me because I have never missed a show.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I think it's one of the reasons why the cruise ships like me so much is I am one of those people that I will show up and I will get through it. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I will find a way to make it work.
But tell me, so have you had, out of all the ships you've been working on, a standout favorite and a standout least favorite?
Okay, so I feel like it's only fair to keep them separate, like cast as opposed to guest entertainer, because the worst guest entertainer gig is still better than the best cast gig.
That's fair, yeah, because you haven't got to spend as much time with them. And
you don't have all the extra trainings, you don't have the extra security duties, but yeah. So I would say the best ship contract I ever had was as a cast member, was the Celebrity Silhouette, which is mostly because for anyone that's done a ship, you can have the best ship and have a terrible contract on it. Or you can have a really crappy ship with really good people and then it's amazing.
Yeah.
So I feel like the Silhouette was kind of like the best all around. Like I didn't love the shows that I was doing, but it was also I was starting to do my own show and I didn't necessarily think that the ship was the fanciest ship I had ever been on, but the itinerary was insane.
Where was that going?
That was 14-day runs out of Southampton. So we would go up and do the Baltic all the way over to St. Petersburg and back. And then we do Norway, Ireland, Iceland, and Scotland. And then we do another 14-day. And then in the latter half of the season, we switched down into the Med. And my cast was amazing. It's where I met my now partner. He was the band leader and I was the vocal captain. So we were working together, which is kind of like living the dream, getting to work with your person and get off the ship in like Milan. Like, oh darn. Like,
yeah,
I couldn't complain. So that was the best one, I would say. But my worst one was also on Celebrity, which it wasn't so much the company's fault. It was a return to service contract after COVID. And so it was challenging. So a return to service contract meant that you were the first crew back on that particular ship.
Right.
So no one had touched that ship in like 2 years. So we got on like a month, almost 2 months before any guests got on at all, because they were trying to cut down on the likelihood of COVID obviously getting to the ship. So when we got on board the ship, we had a 14-day isolation before we were even allowed to do anything at all.
Oh, wow. 14 days.
14 days alone in your cabin.
So, so then just for my own understanding, you and the staff, or you and the whole crew were 14 days?
The whole crew.
So how's food getting to the cabin if you can't go to the crew mess?
So they bring it on in waves. So they'd be like, okay, we're going to bring on 50 to 100 crew for this 2 weeks. And then once they're out, we'll bring on another 50 to 100 crew. And so like this ship was like slowly ramping back up.
Oh,
so before we had gotten there, there had obviously been like the more essential workers, like the servers and the cleaning crew and things like that. They came on, and then they were taking care of us until we could get out, kind of thing. And then because they didn't want us rehearsing in Florida and then flying to the ship, because if we're in Florida, we are out and about, we have to go to the grocery store, things like that. So they figured if we stick you on the ship, you're in a safe bubble.
Yeah.
Which we were.
You obviously, as a production singer, you get your own cabin.
Everybody did.
Everybody did. So was it running on like a skeleton crew, like a really basic minimum?
Yeah.
So that everyone got their own cabin. There was no chance of, because I was going to ask that, like on some of the ships I've been on, it was in some cases 4 to a cabin.
Everybody had their own room. And even once guests got on board, they still tried to keep it to no more than 2 to a room. And they were really strict about making sure it was from the same department. So like the exposure would be similar. So you're not somebody from, say, entertainment rooming with somebody from housekeeping. And then there's, crossover. And then within the department, it can be.
Yeah, I understand. They wanted to minimize any cross-contamination. So they segregated everyone by department. But other than that, it obviously being a challenge, once you did your 14-day quarantine, you went into the contract, and the reason why it was so poor, one of your least favorite contracts, is because?
Well, that was also when Omicron happened.
Which was the third wave?
I think it was the third. Basically, they were so strict about their COVID policies because they wanted everybody to be safe that they did contact tracing, which basically meant if somebody tested positive, they would follow on the security footage back who all they had been with for 48 hours. And if you had spent more than 15 minutes with that person, you went into quarantine, even if you didn't have COVID.
Wow. For 14 full days?
Well, it was 10 days hard quarantine, 4 days soft quarantine.
What's the difference between hard quarantine and soft quarantine?
You could only go out of your cabin for work on a soft quarantine. That was it.
Okay. That's the first I've heard of contract tracing. That sounds very authoritarian, a bit kind of Big Brother's watching you, dystopian future.
It definitely it became one of those things where and they shut down everything where crew could socialize, because obviously that's a place where COVID could spread. So there was no crew bar. There was no open deck. You could not have more than one other person in your cabin. You couldn't, like, the list of things you were not allowed to do got so long that you just kind of were like, well, what can I do? And we were also not allowed off the ship at all. The guests were allowed off the ship, but the crew were not allowed off the ship. They just basically locked everything down, and we weren't allowed on or off the ship at all for, God, how long was the longest? I want to say it was almost 2 months. We were not allowed to set foot on ground, which was kind of insane.
Yeah.
And with the contact tracing, I ended up spending, with the exception of like 2 days, I think I ended up spending almost a month straight in isolation, because the first kind of wave of Omicron hit the entertainment team really hard, because we're the ones that are out the most, right? So somebody in each of the bands had gotten sick, and I hung out with all of the musicians. Yeah. So I went in for contact tracing, but I wasn't sick. But so many people were out. This was between Christmas and New Year's. I literally went into quarantine on Christmas Eve.
Happy days.
Yeah.
That's an early Christmas present, isn't it?
Yeah, I literally, because you only had like 45 minutes to an hour to pack everything that you could possibly need. And so I threw my Christmas presents in a bag. I'm throwing clothes in a bag. I'm like, oh, I got a bottle of wine. We'll chuck that in there. It's ridiculous.
Oh, but so you spent that Christmas in your cabin alone?
Yep.
Yeah. And what day were you allowed out after? So Christmas Eve, you went in.
Technically speaking, I was not allowed out until New Year's Eve. And they let me out early because everybody else was in lockdown. So there was nobody to perform for New Year's Eve. So they let me and a couple other people out just so there would be enough people to actually hodgepodge together a band. And it was great. We had a really safe rehearsal. We did it in the theater with everybody like on opposite ends of the stage. And like, so, and then we knew we were performing outside. So less of an issue. But let's just say the people on that particular cruise were a little bit rowdy and were not very much adherent to the COVID protocols. So I was out for one day and I got COVID.
I'm not surprised. And when you say that particular crowd weren't adherent to the rules, I mean, my perception from being back on land was that most audiences would be like that. They just obviously want to enjoy their goddamn holiday and say, you know, good riddance to the rules. I'm at sea. And as most of the old, passengers we used to deal with on the carnival ships, they'd come on with the drinking hat with the beer t-shirt saying, I'm on a boat, bitch.
They are. I always like to say that Carnival is the Walmart of cruise lines.
That's a great line. That is going to be the headline.
But I will, devil's advocate, if I had family, like if I had children, I can understand why people pick them. Because it's the bang for your buck, like, but I would not be caught dead on one.
You're at home with the family in Pittsburgh for how long? And then you're going on a ship at the end of the week?
I've been here for just a couple weeks. I leave on Wednesday morning and I fly to Bali and I get on. Nice. Yeah, I'm excited. I've never been. It looks stunning.
Yeah, it's beautiful in the architecture as well. They've got cockfighting over there. It's third world, Rach. And it sounds like it's going to be an eye-opening experience for you if you've never been to that part of the world. So yeah.
No, but I have done I did a bunch of Central America last year, and I was like, oh, okay. People are literally living under tarps here, and that's okay. But and it's one of the things that I love about, like, I know that there's things that are terrible about the cruise ship industry, but the amount of places that I've been that gives me perspective in life, like I would not have that. Yeah.
I'd be lying if I said it wasn't the same for me. But you're not in any way informed as to the atrocities that that the company you're working for has committed. You're just like, oh, I get to go here? Great. Thanks very much. And you're paying me? Double bonus. Wonderful.
I guess, there also is again, devil's advocate here.
Yes.
The fact that a lot of these places would not have the amount of money from tourism that comes in there if they did not have the cruise ship industry. Because like being on the Reflection when it was coming back from service, a lot of the islands in the Caribbean were like so grateful that we were back because they had no tourism industry for years. There's good and bad of both. There's a yin and yang to every situation.
And an example of that would be some of the places that get too much tourism. When it went away, like in Venice, their canals cleared up, and they were like, "Oh my God, why were we letting so
Yeah.
many come to our shores? Let's put a cap in place. Let's stop them all coming because, God
Yeah.
damn it, we've had enough." We can
Yeah.
see the bottom of the canal. We can actually see the sky. It's not covered in smog. It's similar with like Southampton. They have got a
Yeah.
lot of ships down there.
A lot.
Mhm.
Although I will say it was one of my favorite home ports because
Yeah.
the mall is fantastic.
You said that you've been and experienced our weather a little bit. Was that your experience in Southampton? Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Because you know what's insane is I have so many friends that are British.
yeah.
I dated several British people, and yet
Was I the first?
you were. Was that your first American girlfriend?
Yes. Yes.
See?
And only. I could never love another American after you, Rachel.
You know what's funny though is I always get all the clout with any Brits, whether it's just friends or guys that I've dated, that when I tell them that I've watched all of Only Fools and Horses.
Yes, I did you proud. I told you that would hold you in good stead.
It has. Oh my God. It's so funny. Like, little American chick. And I'm like, doughboy. And they go like,
yeah. Well, on the flip side, I don't really get any clout if I tell any American chick that I watched all of Nip Tuck.
That's because we didn't realize how bad it was at the time.
Oh,
but again, things that we wouldn't know if we were not on ships. Like I know TV shows from Australia. I know TV shows from like random places that it's just because we traded hard drives.
That's it. That's an important thing to say, is that we traded hard drives, which is like digital currency before Bitcoin. But as you say, the currency of trading data in the form of movies and TV shows and music, it's like trading cards. As I kind of like, stickers and shinies in the books, and you're collecting stickers. You're like, oh, got, need. Oh, I really want to watch that. And
I'm missing that season of that. Like, yep.
Yeah, mix and match. Do you give me a little bit of this? You give me a little bit of that?
Yeah.
But it's one of the exciting things, I suppose, isn't it? The reasons why it's such a difficult business to leave, maybe, because it's just so much.
Yeah, it's golden handcuffs, right? Like,
yes, great expression.
Yeah, it's very much like, and even being a guest entertainer is different now, because when you're a crew member, you're guaranteed employment for a certain amount of time. You know what you're going to make. You know sort of how much you're going to work. You kind of have an idea of what you're getting into, but you know how to settle into that lifestyle and you get kind of used to it, right? Like, oh, well, I'll go home and I'll spend all my money and then I'll go back and I'll do another 6 months and then, kind of thing. And I think that stability of like, especially in the entertainment industry, we don't get that very often.
No.
It's very, very rare for us to have a performance opportunity that lasts longer than, say, 8 weeks. So for you to say, here's an 8-month contract where you're getting pretty good pay. And if you're a singer, you get your own room. If you're a dancer, you share, but with another dancer. So it's not crazy.
Yeah.
And you only do a couple of shows a week, depending on if you're on a longer cruise. You have a good amount of downtime. You don't have rent. You don't have utilities. You don't pay for your food. I can see why people end up doing it for so long.
Yeah.
But now for being on an independent contractor and coming back to it is also very different, because when you have to be like, okay, like right now, my schedule for this year is a little light, which is okay, because a lot of them come very last minute because they'll realize, oh, we don't have enough entertainers for that next 21-day cruise. Let's send Rachel. I've had one where they wanted me to fly out with less than 36 hours notice.
Wow.
And just like so my schedule is light for this coming year. I've got 4 longer cruises booked, which is nice, because the longer the cruise, the less I have to technically work. But when you're a cast member or a crew member and you have, you can kind of schedule your life around it.
Yeah.
Whereas me, it's always, when's the next one? When's the next one? How do I get the next one? How do I get the next one? Because you have to build that reputation, and it's different. Every single cruise line, I was on 5 different lines last year, and every one of them was completely different. And even from ship to ship was completely different. So it's like this weird, I have too much experience.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah.
You don't have a chance to take it all in because it's like, well, you just have to adapt. This ship has got these things different to that ship. The shows are all different. The itineraries are all different.
Yep.
You just have to embrace it, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, especially for the position that I have now, I travel by myself. They book my travel for me. So sometimes I don't get my travel details until the day before. And then I'm going to some random country that I may have never been to some random hotel that I don't speak the language. I mean, thank goodness we have Google Translate now.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a real lifesaver.
It's so helpful. I mean, in general, I find that just being a nice human being and smiling at people gets you a long way in like people wanting to help you.
And you know that because it's always the people who complain at reception on board cruise ships and hotels, they get the worst service in return.
Yeah. If you are a nice person, if you are a good human being, people will normally give you that energy back.
Yes. So I mean, that should be a given.
Yes. So when I'm traveling, I try to like, sounds really cliche, but to like move with grace, knowing that like somebody has had somebody scream in their face today and probably yelled at them for something that was not their fault. And so I'm very much of it's not your fault, but how can we fix this kind of thing? Yes. Which in general works.
I'm with you on that.
Yeah. But I'm nervous for this next one. I've never been to Doha. I've never been to Bali. So I'm like, I've got no idea where I'm going.
When was a good occasion when Google Translate helped you out of a jam?
Well, I'll tell you one related to ships, but the funniest one is talking to my boyfriend's parents.
Oh, what nationality is he?
French.
Ooh la la.
Oui, bien sûr. So like I've been learning French, but his parents, the only English they ever speak is when I'm there. And I feel guilty whenever we're having like a meal and he's constantly having to be like, well, what they said and what she said is. So I just put my phone on the table with Google Translate open because I can normally tell what they're talking about because I understand enough French for that. But like the context of what they're talking about, I'm like, what did you just say about the priest? Like,
have you done many excursions? And if so, what was the most memorable, least fun, most fun ones that you've had?
I, in general, tend to try to do them on my own. I'm one of those like adventure people that I look up like, what is the thing here that you have to do? And so sometimes it'll be like, oh, go climb the pulpit rock in Norway, which, cool. Don't do that on a cold, rainy day. It's not fun. But it's also, I think, kind of the whole point of like, what am I going to do? Get off in Stockholm and just go to the pub? Like, no, you got to go do something that's different first, have that experience.
You've got to earn the pub.
You've got to earn the pub.
Yeah.
unless you're in Dublin, and then that's fine. You can just go to pub.
Sure. Because it's just one big pub. Is that what you're saying?
In Dublin, kind
of. Yeah.
Like pub, tattoo shop, art gallery. Pub, tattoo shop, art gallery.
Yeah, that's like, well.
I wasn't mad. I enjoyed it.
But sorry, so going back, you said Norway, that was great. Don't do it on a rainy day. Bad.
Norway, Iceland. Oh my God. If any, go to Iceland. And honestly, when people are like, what's your favorite place on the planet that you've ever been? And I've been to 64 countries. It's a tie between Norway and Iceland. Yeah, I would say my favorite, though, warm place, French Polynesia, hands down. French Poly is like Bora Bora, Moorea.
Yeah, Bora Bora. I went there when it pissed it down.
Yeah, and they're not actually gonna, I believe, allow ships to go to Bora Bora for the next couple of years. They're gonna have to anchor off and then come in because they're trying to rebuild some of the reefs.
Okay, yeah.
I swam with sharks in Bora Bora,
Mm.
and I also did the stingrays, but like wild stingrays in Grand Cayman. And on that particular day, it was sort of towards the end of Caribbean season. So it was really choppy. And like, I'm a good swimmer. I was prepared. I was fine. But a lot of the people around me, I was like, are you going to make it back on the ship? Because like the waves were insane. And then you've got stingrays that are this big around, like slapping you in the face as the waves come over. And you're like, oh, this is probably should have been canceled, but but I still loved it.
Yeah, well, the closer you are to danger, the further you are from harm, but doesn't sound like it in that case.
I keep being told that I shouldn't try for the third time, but I've been trying to skydive in Aruba for years.
I loved Aruba.
I love Aruba, and I've heard the skydiving there is stunning. And both times I've been planning to go, either it got canceled for weather or for like the plane was getting serviced. And people are like, well, it's the universe telling you shouldn't go skydiving. And I'm like, well, screw that, I'm doing it anyway. You're like, in the arms of that is how she died.
Have you been on any of these ships in like the worst storm where people were getting ready to put on their life jackets and stuff, and you were thinking, right, I'm going to have to go into Rachel drill mode. I'm going to have to go down with the ship and be the last woman on board. You ever been in a situation like that?
I've been in rough seas because the Bay of Biscay is always a little hairy. Where they like just closed all the outside decks. You couldn't do anything outside at all. I was literally, I was a cast member at the time. And so I was in the office doing like my show evaluation for the singers. And literally I would be like trying to type, like rolling it. So, and on that day, actually, we ended up having to cancel shows entirely because we were going to have my show on because they were like, well, it's easy. We'll just put Rachel on. Not that we have to worry about her breaking a leg, but so I was supposed to do my show and we were about to start rehearsal and the drum kit fell over onto one of the musicians. So we were like, nah, we're not doing anything today. But actually the only time that I've genuinely on the ship been like was on our ship, which I don't know if you were still there at this point. And we lost power. Like we had a blackout.
No.
I think you were already gone by that point.
I would have remembered that.
Yeah. And so we were sitting in crew bar, just like it. I think the show was over or something, or it was our night off. I don't remember, but we were sitting in crew bar and all of a sudden all the power goes out. And you see all of a sudden all these deck officers who are always trying to be like suave, act like they own the place, running. And I'm like, oh, that's not good. Like, something and like we're talking no backup lighting. There was no sound of thrusters. You're like, are we dead in the water right now? Like, what's happening? That's the only time that I was like, should I be concerned? They had the emergency lighting on within like less than 5 minutes, but then full power wasn't back on and for like 20 to 25, if I remember correctly. And this is, 14 years ago. Yeah. They had an engine fire, and so they just shut everything down. And then they had to like isolate it before they could reboot the engines for the rest of the ship. And then it went on fine, and we didn't have to do anything. But that was around the time when like I forget the one. There were several ships that like the engines blew out, and then they had to be like towed back in. And I was like, is that going to be us?
Well, if it happens in rough weather, you're just bobbing like a cork by the grace of God, hoping that you don't crash into something.
We were off the coast of California, so we were fine.
Yeah, okay.
That's probably the only time that I've ever been like on the ship.
Well, what about the time that I was on the ship and then I wasn't on the ship?
That was a traumatic experience in and of itself, but that wasn't scary.
Oh, okay. But it's up there. In fact, whilst we're on that, I feel like now's a good time to actually get some, well, I guess you could back me up, right? If you were obviously, if you remember anything about that experience or that incident, how it transpired, because obviously I've written about it in my book as being a what the fuck, what did I do kind of moment. And it might sound a little bit unbelievable to people that it was such an unfair dismissal, but
Oh yeah.
if you can recount it, then people will read it and go, "Oh, actually, no, she backed it up. He wasn't lying."
No, it was completely out of nowhere.
Mm.
Because literally I had your second it wasn't your, was that your second ship?
So we were, let's say, dating for 6 months, and you
Yeah,
joined my ship, my first ship with Carnival,
it was the Paradise.
towards the end of my contract or somewhere
Yeah,
towards the back end. And then
yeah.
basically I went to another ship after a short vacation, and then you were
And
going
I
to come and
requested to go there. Yeah.
you requested to go there. So, but between me going there, I came back to the first ship for a vacation with you. And then when I started on the next ship,
Yes.
a few months in, then I got let go. So then you were basically, did you come to that ship anyway? You did.
Oh, I had to.
You
I
had
had already
to.
signed the contract to go there.
Well, yeah. And so just to recap, I got sent home with immediate effect based on some nonsense that I was
Some
on.
performance issues of like, well, not performance issues, but I had to do that. I had to.
Well, I'm very glad you did, because it made me look good. But so, do you remember what those?
No, I remember.
Do you remember
I
what
do
those?
remember.
I had those 3 strikes and you're out, come all at once out of nowhere.
Yeah. Because if I remember correctly, again, this was 14 years ago.
I know,
But
yeah.
like,
I'm not going to say anything. This is not me. You've not been primed.
no. I'm just trying to remember, because you had come to visit me,
Yeah.
and then you were going to what was supposed to be our next ship, but you were ahead of me by like 3 months. Like I was about to finish my contract and come join the ship.
Yeah.
And I don't remember if it was the ACD or the CD that really didn't like you. And it was because you were better on microphone than they were. And like the people liked you better than them. And at least that's what you told me. I'm assuming that it's true.
Well, I didn't write this down in a book, but keep going.
No, because you always were good at your job. Like, I'm not tooting your horn or anything, but like,
I don't need it tooting. That's fine. But thank you. I appreciate it.
no, but when there's people that are good at like being on mic, and there's people that just have to learn how to be better on mic, and there's people that are just naturally good at it. You were always naturally good at it. Anyway,
thank you, Rachel.
I've rubbed the ego enough. There you go.
Yeah, you weren't paid for this interview. Just clarify that.
No, but I remember it was stupid things like showing up late for something, and then it was all like within the same day. It was just like it was definitely within the same cruise. I think there was 2 warnings in the same day, which was like, see, now I'm like, I feel like I should remember it better, but it was so long.
It's so long ago. And if I tell you what those 3 things were, you got one of them right, essentially being late, but being late to being early to set up for an event on one occasion.
Was one of it uniform? There was something with your uniform.
Do you remember which part of the uniform specifically?
Was it shoes?
It was not shoes. It was between the shirt and the shoes.
Oh, the pants.
It was the pants. Because on the Paradise, on the first ship, it was tracksuits, and on the second ship, you had to wear shorts. And I didn't get given any shorts.
Wore your track, yeah.
I wore my trackies, and they were saying you got to go to Target and buy your own stuff because we've got nothing left in the store. And I'd lost my wallet or something, so I didn't have a chance to go out and get them.
Yeah.
And that was another strike for refusing to comply with the uniform standards. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
that's
then
a threat.
And then the third strike, having my t-shirt untucked.
I knew it was 2 uniform things. I remember there was stupid things, and it wasn't like your performance in events. It wasn't like, I had an issue with a guest or I acted inappropriately. It was stupid things. Like, and I had watched people get away with so much more than that.
Yeah, well, do you care to do, you don't have to name anyone, but you can tell us a story where someone did something awful and they managed to keep their job.
I mean, I know people that have completely slept through events and just didn't show up at all.
Yeah. And that was
Or
fine.
like recently, I know somebody on a ship that one of their band members completely slept through a production show and they couldn't find him because he didn't answer his phone.
So what do they do? Do they play like a track of his part?
Yep.
I mean, by that logic, does anyone have to go to work anymore?
Yeah, it was I remember that being, that's so crazy because I remember it being a uniform and then one being late.
Yeah. Well, you did. I give you credit. You got the uniforms, and it's not something that you're going to remember because of how bad it was. You're going to remember because of how stupidly not bad it was.
Yeah, and I remember also the day that happened.
Oh, really?
We couldn't get off the ship for some reason. I don't remember why. I think it might have been drill or something. Because I remember I was sitting on the ship using the Wi-Fi of the terminal that we were parked at. And I was like, and you're like, I just got fired. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
Because it was out of nowhere.
And it was a classic 6 o'clock knock story, if ever I've heard one, which is them coming to your cabin, telling you that you have been terminated. Pack your bags, you got an hour. They handed me over to the Homeland Security at the airport, and I was with him till like 8 o'clock that night. Like I was with him all day. He wouldn't let me out of his sights. And I had a stamp in my passport that basically said something along the lines of not allowed re-entry into the country until, well, some time. And I haven't been back since. So I'll come back eventually, you know.
You're not missing a whole lot. Honestly, if I could live anywhere else, I would.
Well, I guess it's true for a lot of people, isn't it? You kind of want what you don't have.
Yeah, I mean, actually, two of my really, really good friends, one of them was my best friend on a contract. He and his boyfriend just got married. One's from England, one's from the States, and they keep arguing over where they're going to end up because the American wants to go to England and the Brit wants to come to the US. And they're like, well, how do we pick? I'm like, well, let's wait and see what happens in the election this year, and then we'll decide.
Yeah, so if you had your way, you would get off and you'd go somewhere else. But you tend to go for partners who are from other places just to give you that option.
I sure do. Well, I don't think that's the intentional reason why. No. But I will say, I have not dated an American since I started on cruise ships.
Well, have you got something against them?
Not necessarily. I just find that I will say that a lot of people are intimidated by me, which I find hilarious.
Okay. Well, there's probably there might be a lot of jilted American guys out there who've not found a requited love with yourself, Rachel. So this is your chance to kind of let them know why they're just not cutting the mustard. They're just not good enough.
Well, I will say I have one cringy moment that literally, so my ex-husband was cruising with me when we were dating back to back a bunch of times, right? Coming in and out of the country. And that flagged his passport. So they sent in the drug dogs to search my cabin because they thought he was trafficking. And I was like, no, he works on the cruise ship. He's just cruising with me before he starts working. So they had him detained in the terminal, and they're tearing apart my room because he's cruising in my room.
God.
And they were like, well, I just have one question for you. And I was like, okay. And they were like, well, I don't understand why you would like have this person cruise with you. Why can't you just date someone from your own country?
That's what they said. Like, so this is the customs officer? Who's this?
This is the customs officer searching my cabin.
Why can't you just get a normal boyfriend?
I was like, racist. That attitude is exactly why I don't date Americans.
Oh, you should have said, oh, no, you're right. Here, give me your number.
Like, what did you think my response was going to be like? Oh, my knight in shining armor. I
Oh.
really didn't want to date him. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank God.
As I recall, it was this the Romanian guy?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He was
Casino.
Blackjack dealer.
Yep.
That's how
He was a dealer.
He was a dealer, different kind of dealer. Because we've been in touch for, on and off here and there.
Yeah.
But we've not spoken on FaceTime for, ever.
That's why we've never had a problem talking to each other, because it wasn't like a contentious, like, no. I hate you. It was literally, this sucks.
Yeah.
But there's nothing we can do about it.
Well,
so.
I guess that's a good soundbite to play the girlfriend later. She's she wants to know that there's nothing kind of like unresolved, I guess.
No, it was always. I've never had a problem. We've never had a problem.
Was I what, 23, 20, 22? Something like early 20s.
23.
Yeah, I mean, baby face.
I mean, I'm 25, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, then that means you were exceptionally young at that age, and that makes me a very bad person. No, we won't ask you how old you are, Rachel. So instead, how much do you weigh?
In kilos or?
No, I'm joking. You don't have to tell me that.
I wouldn't tell you anyway.
Well, you're constantly changing because obviously, like, when you, not constantly, but you still have weigh-ins for shows.
They were, but it became less of a traumatic thing. Like it used to be really traumatic. Like
you'd be circuit training, you do your P90X and
you had to.
Insanity, those DVD workouts. I joined you for one, I think, and I nearly died.
Well, even going from when I requested to be on the second contract with you, they were like, we need you to send us pictures in your most revealing costumes so that we can make sure that you look appropriate in the costumes for the next ship.
Oh, wow.
That was literally a thing.
That was the thing. So they wanted to see where the line was, if you're too buxom in this outfit and how to kind of, I don't know.
It was basically their polite way of fat shaming me. I was on the curvier side of the team. All the dancers were so skinny and tiny, and I was never big by anybody's standards, but by the theatrical standards of the world, I still technically am on the bigger side of things, which is insane.
Yeah. Because you've been doing this for so long now, let's reel it back in, try and be a bit sensible. No, fuck that. What's been your most embarrassing moment?
Oh God.
Give it to me straight.
I've stacked it on stage quite a few times. One time I almost knocked my teeth out when I fell because I had my handheld microphone, like, you're holding your microphone. And so I'm singing and I tripped and hit myself in the face with my microphone, almost knocked my teeth out. So I'm bleeding on stage.
So you were just being a bit uncoordinated?
Yes. Let's just say that as much as I had good dance training over the years, sometimes my feet don't go where I tell them to. Well, also, to be fair, we're dancing in 3-inch stilettos all the time.
Yeah.
So there's times where I've been doing my show and my heel will slip into a groove of the stage and I get stuck. It happens.
Well, because the stages aren't necessarily just a flat piece of...
No, because you have revolves and lifts and stuff, so there's gaps. Yeah. And there's been times where I'll be in the middle of doing something and my shoe's stuck and I'm trying to work it out to keep moving. So,
but aside from all of these little trips and falls, you've never missed a show. You've never broken anything whilst performing, like an injury, sustained injury. Touch wood. Those are some good stats to be proud of, Rachel.
I mean, even because there was always a contingency plan for the singers. Is if you're physically okay, but your voice is shot, we would have a sick track. And then you would lip sync to yourself, right? I've never, again, had to use a sick track in my entire life. I've never missed a show and I've never had to use a sick track.
Out of the 15 years you've been on and off in the industry, has there been any
memorable moments with guests that you can regale us with?
Well, so I will say, and this has changed, but back in the day on Carnival, in the daily program, it had my name. So it would be like, oh, tonight's show is Jazzin' with the vocals of Rachel Dudt. And it got so bad on one of my contracts with me getting Stalkers that I had to change my name in the program. Like I would have people go and find me on Facebook because Instagram wasn't really a thing. This is like
2010, 2009, 11. Yeah.
So people would find me on Facebook and like send me inappropriate pictures or like be like, oh, I saw you at this show. I think we had a moment. And I'm like, bro, no. That happened a lot. That was not fun. And not being able to use my own name was kind of a bit cringy. At the time, I didn't know how to handle it. Now I kind of know how to handle it. Like I just don't let people can follow me if they want, but I'm not going to talk to you. I'm not going to engage with you if you're going to be that kind of a person. Because I've met some lovely people that will send me messages and be like, oh, we really enjoyed your shows. And then you'll get the occasional creeper and you just have to kind of like filter it out as best you can. Getting catcalled happened all the time.
Okay.
And also like some of the performances are slightly more suggestive, but that doesn't give you a reason to be like, where can I get me some of that? Like, you know, like to which I on microphone said you couldn't afford it.
Yeah. Good response. A lot of them, you know, they're on all-inclusive drinks packages, so they don't mind their P's and Q's.
No.
They're there to party. They're there to make their voices known and have fun.
Yeah, it's honestly, I feel like that is one of the reasons why some people that have done it for a long time tend to not go out around the ship, because especially when somebody recognizes you. And again, like I said earlier, I am very recognizable. I am teeny tiny with bright red hair. Yeah. Also, in general, cruises, the ones that I'm getting booked on are a week or longer. So the average age of the cruise guest tends to be in their 50s to 60s. So when you see someone in their 30s running around the ship, we kind of stand out. So I can't really hide from people.
Yeah, I guess that.
So they always have to be on, which is kind of exhausting. But as far as the guests and like ridiculous things, again, this was on our contract, but I think it was after you had already left.
Oh, I missed all the best bits.
Somebody smuggled on a live chicken into their cabin. Nobody knew that they got it on board until the poor cabin steward went to go clean the cabin, and there was a chicken in the cabin.
Wow. How did they get that past the security?
That's my thought.
That's incredible.
Because you couldn't put it in a bag because you would have seen it in the x-ray machine, right? So they must have had it like in a hoodie or like
under a hat that they were wearing.
I don't know if it would be a big enough hat for a chicken.
I don't know. I'm just trying to think logics. Yeah, weird. Did you encounter any deaths?
There's been a couple of those that were ships that I was on, but not when I was on them. I got onto a ship right after, I don't know if it's been fully litigated yet or not, but I know it was suspected that the husband had shoved his wife off of the balcony and she had landed on a lifeboat, and then that's how she died, because she hit the lifeboat hard enough that...
But it was alleged that he had pushed her.
Yes.
Okay.
I know he was arrested under suspicion of that. I don't know whatever happened with that, but yeah, that one was questionable at best.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things where I hope we're not putting ideas in people's heads if they see this, Rachel, because that's awful. That's awful. We're not about that on DeckTales. We don't want to put ideas in people's heads.
Complete comedic crime, you know, like
no, and there's cameras everywhere. We should say
well, that's the thing. That's why they knew it was him, and also the key card. They knew he was in the room,
right? Because
they could see that he had scanned into the room, right? So theoretically, she may have jumped, but
you don't want to say. You can't say. You don't know.
I can't say because I genuinely don't know. I'm still writing new shows. I try to cater them to the different lines. Some younger stuff for the younger cruisers, and then the classic like jazzy Broadway stuff for the older cruisers. So, but it's a fun creative outlet for me. And then when I bring it up on stage, it's mine. It's my creation, my baby, which makes it kind of scary if they don't like it.
Yeah, but if anything, it's like, if they write something good or write something bad, at least they're writing something, because you've got something for people to write about.
Exactly. Yeah, I will continue to do what I love to do until people stop letting me do it. I'm just Rachel Dudt, RachelDudt on all of the socials. That's my website. If you find my website, I have a link to all my socials, so you'll find me. I'm the first thing that pops up on Google if you put in that name.
Yeah.
And
but please, no creepers.
No creepers, please. Don't make me change my name again. If you ever end up going down, though, we're going to have the really deep, fucked up conversations about cruise ships.
Rachel Dudt part 2.
I got roofied 2 different times on 2 different ships.
You got roofied?
Yep, by crew members.
Oh my God. Well, okay.
I almost got fired on one of them because of it.
You nearly got fired because you got...
Because I blew over the alcohol limit because I had been roofied, but they didn't know that I had been roofied. I didn't know I'd been roofied. I knew nothing. I just woke up and was like, what happened to me? And one of my best friends, he basically carried me on the ship and was like, something's wrong. I've been with her all day and she's not okay. And so he pushed them enough that they did a blood test. And they were like, oh yeah, you have Rohypnol in your system.
You have what?
Rohypnol, the roofie. And luckily at the time, most of the executive team on board were women. And so basically they, in my captain's hearing, they were like, we're not going to let any of like the normal people into this hearing. We're only going to allow the female staff in. And they basically tore up my breathalyzed over thing and were like, we are so sorry, whatever you need from us, this is unacceptable, and they were like, if you need anything from us at all, please let us know, because this is a safe place. We want to make you feel safe. So whatever you need. And I was like, that makes that awful experience much better, but it's still awful because they're like, it happens. And not just to crew members. It happens to guests. It happens everywhere. Women get taken advantage of everywhere, but you think of your ship as like your home. It's a little more messed up when it happens.
So yeah, that's awful. Thank you for sharing that, Rachel.
Well, like I said, it much more awful things happen to many, many people. And I think that the way that they handled it and the way that they're doing their best to keep things like that from happening is the upside of it. I'm just glad that nothing worse happened to me and that I had very good friends that would not have let anything bad happen to me. Like, I mean, I literally on one of my contracts, they have contractors that come on the ship sometimes to like fix things if they're like revamping stuff. So they're crew, but they're not crew kind of thing. And so like we had a situation where the entertainment team, we actually got a guy removed from the ship because he was so creepy and like groping people at a crew party. And to the point where like I was I'm very lucky. I find my tribe, right? So on this particular ship, it was my 2 Brits. And so we were at this party, and it's one of the first parties we had really, and it was on the open deck. And I'm dancing with my friend. We're being stupid, enjoying ourselves, trying to let out some steam, because this was again during COVID. And I'm like, someone just touch my ass? And so I automatically assumed it was like a fellow cast member, like one of my friends, one of my people, right? And I turned around, and there's this contractor behind me that was like, yeah, what's up? And I was like, I'm sorry.
He said, yeah, what's up?
Well, in very broken English, but yes.
Okay.
And so I immediately am like, did that just happen? So I go to my 2 boys. I go, I'm sorry. this just happened to me. And they're like, what? And they literally, like, the little one is like, what do you want me to say? What do you, and I'm like, it's okay. Just don't, like, stay near me for now, please.
Yeah.
And so one of them stayed with me. The other one went to security. They had done it to 4 other cast members.
Oh, so it was multiple contractors. It wasn't just one contractor.
No, it was one dude who did it to multiple people in the cast.
Oh, okay. Shit. Well, he was a serial groper.
And the one, he came up to her and he was like trying to dance with her. And so she grabbed our dance captain, who is gay as the day is long. And she's like, oh no, Casey's my boyfriend. You know, we're hanging out. And he's like, I don't care. Like being like, try to like literally come between them. And I'm like, what self-entitled bull is this? And so we ended up having to go to security, and they pulled the footage, and we all made statements, and he did get removed from the ship because he thought that he could get away with that. And I was like, I appreciated the fact that our security team was like, nope. He was immediately pulled from the party, and he was off the ship by the next cruise.
Well, I think that's it's a great warning story to future gropers that you are being watched. And if you think you're going to get away with it, good luck.
Also to the ladies, like, don't put up with it. Speak up, because you're probably not the only person that this person has done it to.
Yeah. Thank you for spending all this time with me and giving us your time. I really, really appreciate it. It's been just so nice to catch up and to hear a bit more of your experience in total. It's not over yet, the story, because it's still ongoing. And again, thank you for validating my unfair dismissal.
It was unfair. It was unfair. Really? Pants and an untucked shirt? Come on. Been good to chat and to just have a proper catch up. 14 years.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks again.
Talk to you later. Good to
Take
see
care.
you.
Good to see you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
So there you have it. That wraps it up for this episode of DeckTales. I hope you enjoyed it. If you've been entertained by the tales of laughter, camaraderie and the occasional stormy sea, then don't forget to subscribe, rate and leave a review. Your feedback helps us to navigate the podcasting waters and continue bringing you these fascinating stories. Before I sign off though, if you would like to share your own stories for future episodes, then I would love to hear from you. Simply get in touch over the socials, because after all, the best stories often come from our listeners. As we navigate through the waters of life, remember to enjoy the journey as much as the destination, as well as those you choose to share the adventure with. I've been your captain, Sammy Catlin. Until next time, fair winds, smooth sailing, and may your adventures be as unforgettable as those shared here on DeckTales. Bon voyage!